Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Women's Member Excellence Committee of ICAI, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Yashashwini, an Idol Series 29. Yashashwini. An Idol is Wednesday series of program conducted by YMEC for the women CAs and by the women CAs. This series is an extension of Sky High Symposium, which concluded its 100 episodes. It's one of the committee's initiatives to not only disseminate information to women members on technical updation and non-technical skills, but also to empower and inspire women members to come on the forefront and realize their verbal skills at the public forum. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Chunauti Dolakia. CA Chunauti Dolakia is a qualified BCom FCA and DSI SA and has been a chartered accountant since 2008. She has published numerous articles in prestigious journals and books. A respected faculty member, she has contributed to various seminars and webinars of ICAI. In recognition of her achievements, she received the Mrudhanya Lekhakar Award in August 2024 from Page 3 magazine Surat. I hand over it to Ms. Chunauti Dolakia.
Thank you, Krishna, and thank you, Women Members Excellence Committee, for giving.
Chunauti ma'am,
Hello, my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Today, hello. Today, my discussing topic is issues in trust registration under the Income Tax Act. We are facing many issues in trust registration due to changes made in registration process. But there is one very meaningful quote that nothing changes if nothing changes. To make changes in something, it is necessary to make changes in some other things. The changes in registration process of trust are made to streamline the process of registration. In recent past, some trusts were facing many difficulties in producing registration certificate to the department, as the process of registration was manual, and it is obvious that hard copy of the registration certificate may not be available with all trusts. Hence, it was thought to make the whole process online and decided to issue the registration certificate to the trust under Section 12A in ATG based on some criteria. But the changes made by Finance Act 2020 has created many issues till date, and we are facing many issues. We will see such issues step by step later. Now, to understand it, first we will see overview of the basic provisions applicable to trust registration. Then we will see issues faced during the trust registration and its possible solutions in light of recent judgments. Then we will see important matters to be considered to avoid rejection or cancellation of registration. So, to start with the basic, as we all know that Section 11, 12 and 13 of the Income Tax Act are complete code, and registration under Section 12 is mandatory to claim exemption under Section 11 and 12 of the Act. The new provision for registration has been inserted by Finance Act 2020, and as we all know that there are drastic change in process of registration. Now there is no permanent registration. The trust is to first apply for provisional registration, which is issued for 3 years. Then the trust has to apply again for regular registration, which is issued for 5 years. And as we all know, with effect from 1st October 2023, the trust can directly apply for regular registration subject to satisfaction of some conditions. What are these conditions? We will see later. Now, the question is, who can apply for registration? Section 12 uses the word any trust or institutions. Hence, any public, charitable or religious trust can apply for Section 12A registration. The private trust cannot obtain registration under Section 12A. Whether cooperative society and Section 8 company can obtain 12A registration? Yes, they can apply for 12A registration. Religious trust cannot obtain registration under Section 80G because the 80G registration condition is that the objects of the trust should not be related to particular particular religious community or caste. Hence, we should always consider that if expenditure on religious nature of the trust is more than 5% of total income of the trust cannot apply for ATG registration. If in such cases the trust will apply for ATG registration, its application will be rejected. Now the question is condition to obtain regular registration. Section 12A specified two conditions, that is charitable object and genuineness of activity. Now what are the charitable objects? As specified under section 215 of the Act, object of the trust should be considered as charitable if it includes relief of poor, education, yoga, medical relief, preservation of environment, preservation of monuments or places or objects of artistic historic interest, or advancement of any other object of general public utility. If the objects related to advancement of any other object of general public utility, satisfaction of conditions mentioned in proviso to section 215 is mandatory. What are these conditions? Section 215 proviso provides that if activity of the trust is in the nature of trade, commerce or business, the trust has to conduct such activity in the course of carrying out of any other object of general public utility, and receipt from such activity should not be more than 20% of total receipt. And as we all know that Supreme Court in case of Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority has specified that now there is no predominant object concept. Hence, even if the activity of the trust is in relation to trade, commerce or business, the trust has to satisfy the condition mentioned in proviso under section 215. And second condition is genuineness of activity. Now, what is the genuineness of activity? Genuineness of activity means activity of the trust should be actually conducted and should be as per object of the trust mentioned in the trust deed. Now, at the time of implementation of provisions for registration, the trust has been divided under two categories. First category are the trusts which are already registered under old provision, and second category are the trusts which are not registered under old provision. Now, under such unregistered trust, there is two subcategories. First category are the trust or institution which has already commenced activity before applying for provisional registration, and second category are the trust or institution which has commenced activity after obtaining provisional registration. And as we all know that most of the issues are related to the trust which has already commenced activity before applying for provisional registration. Now, what is the due date for applying for provisional registration or regular registration? So, to specify the due date, section 12A1 AC has bifurcated the trust into 6 categories. First category are the trust or institution which were already registered under section 12A under old provision before implementation of new provision. Such trust has to apply within 3 months after implementation of the provision. This date was extended till 30th June 2024 by circular number 724. Second category are the trust or institution which has obtained regular registration under new provision and wants to re-register under new provision. The trust has to apply at least 6 months prior to the date of expiry of such registration. Meaning thereby, if the trust has obtained regular registration for assessment year 22, 23 to 26, 27, such trust has to apply at least 6 months prior to the date of expiry, that is on or before 30th September 26. If the trust will not apply or not before 30th September 26, application for registration will be rejected. Third category are the trust or institution which has obtained provisional registration under new provision and wants to obtain regular registration. Such trust has to apply at least 6 months prior to expiry of period of provisional registration or within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity, whichever is earlier. Meaning thereby, if the trust has commenced activity on 1st April 2024 and obtained provisional registration for assessment year 25-26 to 27-28, the trust has to apply at least 6 months prior to date of expiry of provisional registration, that is on or before 30th September 2026 or within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity, that is on or before 30th September 2024. Meaning thereby, The trust, which has commenced activity on 1st April 2024, has to apply for regular registration on or before 30th September 24. If the trust will not apply on or before 30th September 24, application of the regular registration will be rejected, and in this case section 115 TD will be applicable. We will see how it will be applicable later. What category are the trust or institution whose registration becomes inoperative and the trust wants to obtain provisional registration? In this case, the trust has to apply at least 6 months prior to the date of commencement of assessment year from which the registration is sought to be made operative. Fifth category are the trust or institution which has adopted modification objects which do not conform to the condition of registration. Such trust has to apply within a period of 30 days from the date of the said adoption or modification. And as we all know that with effect from 1st October 2023, the trust can directly apply for regular registration. But to apply for regular registration, the trust has been bifurcated under two subcategories. First category are the trust or institution which has not commenced activity and wants to apply directly for regular registration. The trust has to apply for direct regular registration at least 1 month prior to commencement of the previous year relevant to the assessment year from which said registration is sought. And second category are the trust or institution which has already commenced activity and wants to apply directly for regular registration. The trust has to apply at any time after commencement of such activity, provided benefit of exemption under section 11 or 12 has not claimed in any previous year ending on or before the date of such application. For example, if the trust has commenced activity on 1st April 2021 and the trust was not registered under all provision, and now the trust wants to obtain registration under section 12A on 1st April 2024, the trust can directly apply for regular registration if the trust has not obtained benefit of exemption under section 11 or 12 from financial year 23-24, 21-22 to 23-24. Similar provisions are there for ATG registration also. The trust can directly apply for ATG registration also, but as per the amendment made by Finance Act 2020-24, with effect from 1st October 24, the trust which has already commenced activity can apply directly for regular registration under Section 80G at any time after commencement of activity, even if the trust has obtained benefit of exemption under Section 11 or 12 in any earlier previous year. The condition of 11 or 12 exemption which we have seen earlier for section 12A registration is not applicable now for ATG registration. Hence, even if the trust has obtained benefit of exemption, suppose from assessment at 21-22 to 23-24, the trust can now directly apply for regular registration under section ATG. Now we will see what are the other amendments made by Finance Act 2024. First amendment is regarding registration under section 1023C. Now the new registration under section 1023C subclause 4, 5, 6 and 6A cannot be obtained after 1st October 24. But all trusts which are already registered under this section can continue to get benefit of exemption, and after expiry of period of registration, they will have to apply for registration under section 12, meaning that the trust with valid registration under section 1020C can continue to get of exemption under section 1023C, but which are after expiry of the registration, the trust has to apply under section 12 only. The trust cannot apply for 1023C registration again. Another welcome change which is mostly required. Sometimes we were filing application for registration beyond the specified date and we are afraid to condone the delay, but application for delay condone was rejected by a commissioner or principal commissioner on the ground that they have no power to condone the delay. But now, White Finance Act 2020-24, principal or commissioner or commissioner have powers to condone the delay in filing application for registration under section 12AB if there is reasonable cause for the delay. Now, what is reasonable cost? Reasonable cost means the cost for the delay should be actual or genuine, we cannot say that we have filed application for registration 3 months late because there was technical problem in the portal. The application for registration should be filed with the date if there is reasonable cause which is genuine. In such circumstances, only the delay condone application will be granted. Another point is considered here is that such delay condone power has been given only for 12B registration only and not ATG registration. Hence, if the delay condone application for ATG registration will be filed, it will be rejected. Another change is that now order granting or reject application for registration under Section 12AB or ATG will be passed before expiry of period of 6 months from the end of the quarter in which the application for registration was filed. Hence, suppose the application for registration was filed in August 24. The order granting or rejecting such application will be passed on or before 31st March 2025. Now coming to the issue, first and main important issue which is faced by many trusts is the date of commencement of activity. As I've seen earlier, Section 12A1 AC3 mandates to file application for regular registration within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity or at least 6 months prior to expiry of period of provisional registration, whichever is earlier. But what is the date of commencement of activity? It has not defined anywhere what is the date of commencement of activity. Whether it is date of incorporation of trust, it is date when the trust has first time received donation, or the date when the trust started applying its income for the trust objects. Some experts are of view that the third category, which is the date when the trust started applying its income for the trust object, should be treated as the date of commencement of activity. But there is no clarification in the Act, and due to such no clarification, many issues are faced by the trust. The clarification is required. Moreover, the existing trusts which are incorporated many years before implementation of new provision and unregistered up to implementation of new provision and wants to register under Section 12AB, it is impossible for such trust to apply within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity, as the trust were incorporated many years before. Hence, they are unable to obtain registration under Section 12B. How can such trust apply from the date of commencement? Suppose the trust was formed in year 2001 and wants to obtain registration, regular registration. How the trust can apply within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity? And a similar issue is there for registration. Existing trust which are applied for regular approval under Section 80G after obtaining provisional approval, the trust how the trust can apply for 80G registration within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity. Also, the new trust which wants to obtain regular registration under Section 12AB, if the trust has not obtained benefit of exemption under Section 11 and 12 in previous year, the trust can directly apply for regular registration, as we have seen earlier the provisions. But the trust has obtained benefit of exemption under Section 11 and 12 in previous year, the trust will face similar issues because the trust will have to apply first for provisional registration and then regular registration. And at the time of applying for regular registration, similar issues will be faced, as the trust cannot apply within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity. Some judicial rulings have given relief to some extent and provide possible solutions. Judicial rulings direct that there should not be any discrimination between existing and new trust for provisions of registration. The term whichever is earlier should be applicable only to the trust which has commenced activity only after obtaining provisional registration and not to the trust which has already commenced activities before obtaining provisional registration. And for the existing trust, only condition should be to apply within 6 months of expiry of provisional registration, meaning thereby the trust which has already commenced activity before applying for provisional registration has to apply only within 6 months of expiry of provisional registration, and the condition of obtaining the registration within 6 months from the date of commencement of activity should not be applicable to them. This is harmonious interpretation. And the judgment issued in case of NJ Charitable Foundation Surat versus CIT, which is issued by Surat Tribunal is that the date of donation to other trust shall not be treated as the date of commencement of activity. Sometimes the trust is giving donation to other trust. No other activity was commenced by the trust, but first time the trust is giving donation to other trust. It is treated as date of commencement of activity in some cases. In this case, it was held that donation to other trust is not the activity in real sense. Hence, activities are to be considered as commenced when the donation received is utilized for the charitable activities, otherwise not. The judicial rulings related to date of commencement of activities supporting the view given earlier are as under Madras High Court judgment in case of Sri Narsimha Priya Charitable Trust versus CBDT, Jodhpur Tribunal judgment in case of Bhamasha Sundarlal Daga Charitable Trust versus CIT exemption, Surat Tribunal judgment in case of Financial Accounting Trust versus CIT exemption, Ahmedabad Tribunal judgment in case of Hello. Sorry for the interruption. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you. Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Jodhpur Tribunal judgment in case of Bhamasa Sundarlal Daga Charitable Trust versus CIT exemption, Vananchal Kavani Trust versus CIT exemption, Ahmedabad Tribunal judgment in case of Rabdi Vibhag Progressive Kavani Mandal versus CIT exemption, Pune Tribunal judgment in case of Tibilullah Charitable Foundation Sangli versus CIT exemption, Chennai Tribunal judgment in case of CIT 1982 Charitable Trust Coimbatore versus ITO exemption. Another issue is related to notice. Another issue is related to filing application due to bona fide reason. As we have seen earlier, sometimes the trust is unable to file the application within the due date specified due to some bona fide reason. Such reasons includes trustees were out of country, health problems to trustees, mistake of accountant by treating provisional registration as regular registration, etc. In this case, the circumstances are beyond control of the trust and the trust is unable to file application for registration. Finance Act 2024 to condone the delay is not applicable to condone the delay in filing application for registration under Section 80G. Now, there is interesting judgment in case of Best Buds Pest Care versus CIT exemption. This is given by ITAT Ahmedabad. In this case, it was held that the CIT exemption has rejected application for registration under Section 8G as the application was filed beyond the specified due date. In this case, the trustees filed affidavit in which case it was stated that the old accountant has resigned and the new accountant was unaware about the difference between provisional registration and regular registration, and it has come to the notice only when their CA has pointed out this mistake. Then they have filed application for registration under Section 80G and prayed to condone the delay. But CIT exemption has rejected the claimant not satisfied with the reply. In this case, ITAT Ahmedabad held that application for registration under Section 80G cannot be rejected on the grounds of delay in filing Form 10AB due to bona fide reasons as the circumstances were beyond control of the trust. Next are the issues related to notice. Sometimes, as we all know that before granting or rejecting application for registration, for regular registration, CIT issues notice seeking some details. Sometimes it happens that such notices are uploaded on the portal only and not sent physically or through email. Sometimes it happens that the notice mailed on the email ID other than the registered email ID, which is registered with jurisdictional AO. In these cases, the able to file response for the notice, and in most of the cases, application for registration has been rejected due to lack of genuineness of activity. Hence, at the time of filing response for the notice, we must consider that application will be rejected if no response or only part response is filed for the notice. Sometimes we are filing response, but we are filing not response and every details demanded. We are filing a response for details which are available with us only. Hence, we should keep in mind that we should submit reply for each and every details demanded. If we will not give reply for each and every details, application for registration will be rejected and other consequences will have to suffer to the trust. Now, the judicial rulings related to notice are as under. First is Seth Becher Das Manchan Jain Svetambar Trust versus CIT exemption. In this case, the notice for seeking details was mailed on the email ID other than the email ID registered with jurisdictional AO, and due to no response received for the notice sent twice on the same email ID, application for registration was rejected due to lack of genuineness of activity. In this case, ITIT Pune held that notice mailed on wrong email ID is not an effective notice and violates the principles of natural justice. Hence, opportunity should be given to the trust by serving the notice on the registered email ID. In case of Tantra Mahasabha versus CIT exemption, it was held that the CIT issued notice on uploaded the notice on the portal only and not sent physically or through email. Hence, the FSC was not given response and the application for registration rejected as we have seen earlier. In this case, ITIT Chandigarh held that merely uploading information about date of hearing on the income tax portal is not the effective service of notice as per provisions of section 282 of the Act. Hence, CIT shall serve the notice physically as well as on the registered email ID and decide afresh for application for. Another issue is related to absence of dissolution clause in trust deed. At the time of forming trust deed, which is basic document of the trust, we must be very careful because due to some details not mentioned in the trust deed, there will be harsh consequences upward to the trust. It will be rejected, or even if it is granted, it will be cancelled later also. Hence, at the time of executing the trust deed, that we must consider that the trust deed must contain dissolution clause, and in the dissolution clause, manner of dissolution of trust and manner of transferring assets of the trust at the time of dissolution must be mentioned. It happens that some trust incorporated many years ago may not have dissolution clause in the trust deed because at the time of that time there it was not necessary to mention the dissolution clause. Hence, the trust are facing rejection issue due to absence of dissolution clause. Now, in case of Roop Vikajan Foundation, similar issue was faced by this trust. The trust has no dissolution clause in the trust deed, and CIT exemption was of view that it is lack of genuineness of activity as in absence of dissolution clause. ITIT Delhi held that absence of dissolution clause cannot be considered as absence of charitable objects and lack of genuineness of activity. Hence, absence of dissolution clause in trust deed cannot be a basis for action of application. Another issue is related to objects for particular religious community. Some trusts included the words related to particular religious community or caste in the name of the trust. Another point we must consider at the time of executing the trust deed that the objects of the trust should not be related to particular religious community or caste. Majority of equity or the trust may not be working only for the benefit of particular religious community or caste, but for the benefit of general public. In this case, the registration under Section 12A shall be cancelled if the trust has applied its income for the benefit of particular religious community or caste. Hence, we must consider that even if the registration has been obtained, after obtaining the registration, objects of trust cannot apply its income for the benefit of particular religious community or or caste. If applied, application of registration shall be cancelled. Similar issue was by the trust in case of Sindhu Seva Samiti versus CIT exemption. In this case, the it was included in the name of the trust, and CIT exemption rejected the application due to the inclusion of name words indicating Sindhu, which is related to particular religious community. In this case, ITAT Ahmedabad held that actual activity should be verified for registration and not any word in name of the trust indicating any particular religious community, and only due to inclusion of the word related to any particular religious community in the name of trust, it cannot be confined that the trust is formed for the benefit of particular religious community. Another judgment is related to Jamiatul Banat Tankaria Bharuch versus CIT exemption. It is given by ITAT Ahmedabad. In this case, the trust was running a school for the benefit of general public and applied for registration. CIT rejected the application and applied section 13(1)(b). ITAT Ahmedabad held that the trust, which is established for the benefit of particular community but its objects are otherwise charitable, is a way for the purpose and of applies only at the determination of eligibility of exemption under section 11, not at the time of grant of registration. A very important and very interesting judgment. It is in case of Sri Sriti Parampara Gurukulam Bengaluru versus ITO. In this case, the trust was providing Vedic education and applied for 12AB and ATG registration, and the trust applied for 12AB. Hello. The trust was providing Vedic education and applied for 12AB and ATG registration, but the registration was granted under section 12AB under religious trust category, and the application for registration under section 80 is rejected on the ground that spreading knowledge of Vedas is religious object and therefore it is formed for the benefit of particular religious community. ITIT Bengaluru held that the word Hindu is a way of life or state of mind and not a religion. The word Veda means knowledge, and it is derived from the word Vid, means to know. Vedas contains knowledge of science, medicine, political science, psychology, agriculture, poetry, art, music, etc. Hence, it cannot be confined that Vedas are belonging to a particular religion. Hence, the activity of spreading Vedic education is charitable and not religious. Hence, registration under section 12AB and ATG shall be granted under charitable trust category only. Now, what if the application for registration under section 12 be rejected? We must consider that if application regular registration under section 12B is rejected, there is a very, very harsh provision which is contained under has been amended with effect from 1st April 2023. And as specified under this section, the trust shall be deemed to be converted into any other form of registration if application for registration under section be rejected or cancelled. Application for registration under section 12AB is rejected or cancelled. All application for registration has not filed within specified time, or if the trust has modified object but not applied for registration within 1 month, as we have seen earlier, application for registration again within 1 month is necessary if the trust has modified its object, or if the trust has merged with different object entity, section 115 PD is applicable, or if the trust has been dissolved but failed to transfer all the assets within 12 months. Now, which tax is applicable? The tax at maximum marginal rate on accreted income is applicable. Now, what is accreted income? Accreted income means fair market value of assets less liability as on date of order cancelling or rejecting registration, or date of modification of objects, or as on last day of filing application for registration under section 12AB of the Act. And within how much time the tax will be payable? The tax on accreted income shall be paid within 14 days from such date. Hence, if the application for registration under section 12AB has been rejected, or if the trust has not filed application for registration within due date specified under the Act, the trust is required to tax on accreted income under section 115 TD of the Act. Now we will see important matters to be considered to avoid rejection or cancellation of registration. The important matters are related to trust deed. As we have seen earlier, name of the trust should be consistent with objects of the trust, and objects of the trust should be related to particular religious community or caste. The trust has no objects which are related to particular religious community or caste. Also, it should mention in the dissolution clause that trust will work for the benefit of general public without discrimination of any caste, creed, race, or religion. And the trust has to apply for re-registration within 30 days in case of changes in objects. And we should always consider that it should be mentioned in the trust deed that the trust is irrevocable and no part of the profit or any asset will be transferred to the trustees or any donors or any other person at the time of dissolution of the trust. Also, dissolution clause and manner of dissolution of trust should be included in the trust deed. It should be mentioned in power and duties of trustee. The column power and duties of trustee is mentioned generally in the trust deed, and it should be mentioned in this clause that nothing contained in this deed shall be deemed to authorize the trustees to do any act which may in any way be construed as violating or contrary to the provisions of section 215, 1023B, 1023C, 11, 12, 12A, 12AB, 13, and or 80G, 14A IA, 40A3, 43B of the Income Tax Act. All the sections which are applicable to the trust will have to be mentioned in this clause, and or any statutory modification thereof. If there will be statutory modification in this section also, it will be applicable to trustees also, or any other section applicable to trustees. If except these sections, if in future other section will be applicable, the trustees will have to follow such section provisions mentioned in these sections. Now we will see other important matters, which includes if the trust has income from the profits and gains from business or profession, such business should be incidental to attainment of objects of the trust, and separate books of accounts should be maintained. And for the advancement of any other object of general public utility, object should not be related to conducting any activity in the nature of trade, commerce, or business. And moreover, the institution carrying on activity for general public utility, it should always be considered that activity should be undertaken in the course of actual carrying out of such advancement of any other object of general public utility, and receipt from activity of should not be more than 20% of the receipt. As we have seen earlier, proviso to section 215 contains these two conditions, and it has to be followed in case the trust is carrying on activity for general public utility. Supreme Court judgment in case of SCIT versus Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority supports this view. And if the trust is running medical or educational institution, it should always consider that profit should not be more than cost plus markup. Markup means if the profit shouldn't be more than not significantly high than the cost. If the profit is significantly high, then it will be treated as trade commerce or business. And another provisions of the trust shall not be violated. Now, what is trade commerce or business? We have seen if the conditions are not followed, the activity will be treated as trade commerce or business. But what is the meaning of trade commerce business? How we will check that the activity is related to commerce or business? Now, to check this, we have to first check two questions. First question is whether activity conducted for a fees, yes, or consideration. If the answer to this question is yes, then whether such activity is conducted at cost or marginal markup. If answer to the second question is no, then the activity is treated as trade, commerce, or business. Otherwise, it will be treated as charitable activity. And we have, if the activity is related to commerce, the condition mentioned in the proviso to section 215 shall be followed. What are the conditions we have seen earlier? These provisions are applicable in if the trust is paid, conducted, paid, trade commerce business. Many times this question arise, but to check whether they are trade commerce business. First, we have to check whether they are conducting for a fees or sales or conditions. Yes, if it is conducted at cost or marginal markup, if paid workshops are conducted at cost or marginal markup, then there is no issue. But if they are conducted more than cost or marginal markup, will be treated as trade, commerce, or business. And in this case, separate books of accounts has to be maintained, and the profit of such activity should be less than 20% of total receipt. Similar provisions are applicable if the trust has rented some shops and offices which are owned by the trust. Some it is generally some many trusts are renting on their shops and offices owned by them, and in this case it should always say that such income, rental income, should be more than cost of, should not be more than cost or marginal markup. Now we have seen that such activity provided to section 215 provide that such activity should have to be conducted in the course of carrying out of general public utility. Now, what is the meaning of in the course of? In the course of means connected to or part of. If the activities are connected to actual carrying out of any other object of general public utility, no issue. If they are not connected to actual carrying out of general public utility, it will be treated as trade, commerce, or business. What if the register is cancelled and which are considered as specified violation? Now, section 12 will be specified some specified violation. In case of such specified violation, application of registration will be cancelled. Such specified violation are is is income applied other than for objects of the trust. Second is if the income from profits and from business or profession, if the trust has income from business or profession which is not incidental to attainment of trust objects, or if separate books of accounts are not maintained for the business incidental to trust objects, it will be treated as specified violation. Also, if the trust has applied income for private religious purposes, it will be treated as specified violation. If the trust has applied income for the benefit of particular religious community or caste, or if any activity of the trust is not genuine or not carried out in accordance with all or any of the conditions subject to which it was registered, or if the trust has not complied with requirement of any other law, the trust has not complied requirement of any local public trust act, the trust has violated some provisions of local public trust in which a material and order has been passed, even if pending it is material, it will be treated as specified violation and registration will be cancelled in these cases. And most important, and which is a newly inserted provision, that if the application for registration is not complete or it contains false or incorrect information, if the application for registration has even the time for registration, if the details which are demanded in the notice you have given it incorrect, it will be treated as specified violation and registration application will be cancelled. Now, at last, we will see the statutory requirements which have to be followed by the trust. As the filing of date of Form 10B and 10BB for the trust is approaching, we will have to check whether the trust has followed all the statutory compliance or the open for 31st May of every year. The trust which has obtained registration under Section 80G has to file statement for donation contained in Form 10BD and has to issue certificate for donation in Form 10B every year on or before 31st May of every financial year. And for accumulation and application of income or option, the trust has to file Form 9A or 10 at least 2 months before the due date of filing return of income under Section 139(1). That is, the trust has to file such a form on or before 31st August. But Circular number 623 has given relief to some extent, which specified that accumulation or deemed application shall not be denied if Form 9A or 10 is filed on or before due date of filing return of income under Section 139(1). Hence, if the trust has filed Form 9A or 10 on or before 31st October for every year, it will be treated as valid filing and the accumulation or deemed application shall not be denied to such trust. And as we all know, for 10B and 10BB due date 31st September, the trusts which are covered under audit and in the conditions mentioned in Form 10B and 10B has to file such audit reports. And filing of ITR 7, the public charitable trust is mandatory. We have to follow the conditions mentioned for registration and we for registration with, otherwise we will face the issue of discussed. No participant should be, and if the trust will file incorrect information, it will be treated as specified violation. Many issues are faced by the trust due to some wrong information. Hence, we must be careful and to avoid other consequences, we must file the application within time. If there are any questions, you are free to ask. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and sorry for the interruption.
Hello, Miss Chunoti. Thank you so much for the session. We have a couple of questions and I would just read them out to you.
Okay.
The session was very insightful. Thank you so much. Okay, so the couple of questions that we have are like Miss Rucha from Vadodara. She asks, a trust holds registrations under Section 12A as well as 80G. It missed to apply for re-registration under new provisions of 12AB till date. What option is available now?
if the trust was not registered under all provision, or whether the trust was registered under all provision? Registered under, if the trust was not registered under all provision, the trust has to file the application for registration on or before 30th June 24. The due date was extended till 30th June 24. And if the trust has applied for provisional registration but missed filing for regular registration, it has no option but to file delay condon application and then file application for regular registration.
Perfect. Got it. One more question. As per the amended provisions of Section 12A, the delay in filing of the application can be condoned by PCID with effect from 1st October. Accordingly, should the trust file application only after the 1st of October?
Yes, the delay condon application filed before 1st October. The trust can file delay condon application. As we have seen, there are many judgments which support that the principal commissioner has power to condone the delay under Section 80G also, even if they are not given by the Act, but a judicial ruling supports that they can condone the delay under Section 80G also.
Okay, perfect. I would go ahead with asking the audience if they have any more questions for ma'am. Okay, perfect. So I would want to take the honor of delivering the word of thanks for today's enlightening session organized by the Women's Committee of ICI. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to C.H. Chinoti Dholakia ma'am. She is a wonderful, the whole PPT was very insightful. In fact, a couple of folks have also requested for the PPT to be shared. And that'd be great if you could just share it, because a lot of amendments are in this space and you took us for a lot of them. Your wisdom has undoubtedly enriched us, our understanding, and motivated us to take a more informed decision for our clients and for our own understanding. Also, a heartfelt thank you to the Women's Committee of ICI for putting up together such a remarkable platform where we as women professionals can come together to learn, grow, and inspire one another. The commitment and the effort behind organizing this event has been exceptional. I would also like to thank all the attendees for your active participation, thoughtful questions, and the energy that was brought into the session. Like Grishma, she introduced us, and she has a great voice. Your involvement makes all the difference in creating this vibrant community. And last, I would like to just thank the organizing team, Mr. Saurabh, and the entire committee, the tech support staff, without whom today's event would have not been possible. It really is very encouraging, and I hope with tiny steps like these, we end up contributing in each other's success even more. Thank you. I would request Miss Meghna, yeah, she's here, perfect, to carry forward the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Drashti. Good evening, everyone. Let us give a warm welcome to our next speaker, CA Aarti Dharuka. She is a seasoned entrepreneur and management professional with nearly 15 years in travel industry, where she has built a successful services organization for major clients. Currently, she is scaling comprehensive customized holiday planning platform that spans over 130 countries. She is also a published author focused on financial literacy. Over to you, CA Aarti Dharuka. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CA Megha Shivkumar, for the introduction. I really appreciate the kind words. I hope I'm audible to everybody, and you can see the presentation on your screens. Yeah, Megha, if you can just give me a thumbs up.
Yes, it's visible. Yes, and you're audible.
Great. Yes. Okay. So, firstly, welcome everybody to this afternoon session. I think with what's going on in the news, work-life balance has become the focus of our discussions once again. And as hardworking, I would say, students of life, not just our profession, we are all faced with situations where the balance between our work, that is our profession, and our personal and I would say private lives is always a big question mark. So what I'm going to share with you are a few strategies that I believe could really help you effectively manage your work life. Some of these things may seem like a lot of common sense, but what we need to be able to do on a consistent basis is to be able to apply these strategies. Okay. So what is the single biggest problem each and every one of us has? Yes, we all have only 24 hours in a day. But is the to-do list in your mind, in my mind, in each and every one of ours' mind going to fit into those 24 hours? Let me take a breakdown of how most of us end up spending those 24 hours. 6 to 7 hours go in sleeping, right? After those 6 to 7 hours, our basic tasks like bathing, brushing our teeth, eating, using the washroom, very basic things take up maybe another 1 to 2 hours, at least 2 hours in a day. So that's, approximately 8 plus 2 hours of your life on an everyday basis given to tasks that are very critical, but are not necessarily considered productive, right? That leaves us with approximately 14 hours to do the things that we consciously want to do. What are those things? Now, those of us who are present here are either professionals who are gainfully employed, that is paid and employed elsewhere, or we are professionals who are self-employed, or we could also be professionals who have chosen to apply our knowledge in day-to-day walks of life. The beautiful thing about being a qualified chartered accountant is that you don't have to always be on somebody else's payrolls. You can be on your own payroll. You can be on your family's payroll. You can choose to not be on any payroll. Why? Because being a chartered accountant means having the ability to be an entrepreneur in any phase of life. But being that kind of entrepreneur, whether being paid by somebody else or being paid by self or by your clients, presents you with a singular question of how to manage the 100,000 things that are there on your plate. With the 14 hours that are left after taking away the bare essentials without which you and I cannot survive, let's say about minimum 8 to 9 hours in a day will go into our professional work, which will leave us with hardly 4 to 5 hours for things like commuting, household chores, learning, upskilling, social attendance, family time, everything. If you are a person who needs to do a little bit of everything in every given day, then clearly 24 hours are never going to be enough for you. And therefore, what is the question that you have to answer to yourself? How am I going to do everything? How do I hold down a full-time job or a full-time profession? How do I hold on to the relationships in my life? How do I continue to remain healthy? And most importantly, how do I continue to be happy? To help you ease the burden of these complications, I'm going to present you with a few steps. Yes, the first one. Always start with a list. Nothing in your life and my life can be done in an orderly fashion unless we put it down somewhere. And that is the most basic thing that we are taught in our profession. The first thing that is taught to you and me is that if it's not documented, it's not done. If you are choosing to rely on your memory on a day-to-day basis for all the things that you must do on that given day, in that given week, in that given month, and for that year, then that is the first mistake that you and I are making, relying on human memory. As powerful as our memories are, they clearly pose a problem of being overburdened. And over a period of time, our memories start failing. There is just too much to remember. There is too much to do. There is too much to make right. And therefore, if we do not put it down somewhere, we are going to struggle. There is nothing wrong with making a list. It does not mean that your memory is any weaker than it was. It does not mean that you are overly relying on apps or tools. It simply means that you have the foresight to put it down somewhere so that you will not forget. Now, what do you do once you have made that list? You need to put those items into buckets. Having a random list that has everything from finishing XYZ tasks at work, filing your personal returns, buying a present for a family member, paying the electricity bill, buying yourself a new dress, getting enough sleep. All of these things are very random. So after you have put them down in your list, the first basic thing that you have to do is put them into buckets or categories. For me, at a broader level, these categories are personal, the relationships in your life. Secondly, family related. So this is over and beyond, the direct relationships, like with, if you're single, then with your mother, your father, your sibling. If you're married, then with your husband. After that, you go to the family portion, the family bucket. That is your parents, your in-laws, any extended family. Then you go to the health related bucket. So things like getting enough sleep, making sure you walk for 30 or 45 minutes in a day, or maybe you do, 30 Surya Namaskars every day, whatever it is, making sure that you take your health supplements, you schedule a test with your general practitioner, whatever it is, you need to be able to put that into the health related bucket. Professional, the most obvious one, the most important one in all our minds as soon as we wake up every single day, our professional bucket. Finishing a presentation, finishing certain Excel sheets, making sure that your targets are done for the month, whatever it is, your professional items need to go into a separate list. They cannot be intermingled with your personal, family, and health related lists. Financial, you and I are not going to work, we are not putting in that much effort only for personal gratification or mental gratification. We all have financial goals. Many of us choose this profession because it comes with a certain financial reward. So you have to have your financial goals also on that list. Whether it is a long-term goal, a short-term goal, whatever it is, paying a bill or buying a house, upgrading your phone, it is all a financial goal and it needs to be put down somewhere. Similarly, your social goals, meeting your best friend once a month, making sure that you and your partner get to watch a movie once in a week or in 15 days or in maybe even 2 months, making sure that, you remember to call back your parents. These are all very critical social goals. Connecting with your neighbors, contributing to the society. Your social goals can range from personal, family related ones to the society, to the community, whatever it is that is important to you. Then your long-term goals. Like I said, buying a house, wanting to retire early, wanting to upskill, doing another MBA, whatever it is, if it's a long-term goal, it needs to be on this list. And a personal goal. For example, losing weight. It's a personal health related goal, but it's a personal goal. And it may not be a short-term goal. It may not be a long-term goal. It may be a goal that you can't even define. But it is a goal that needs to go on this list. So once you've prepared your list, in the next column, note down which category it comes into. This categorization is important simply from the perspective of knowing how much importance you are placing on each of the elements of your life. Because at the end of the day, your life is not like, it's not like a single line. Life is like a pie chart. It's like a pizza where each of these presents a pizza slice. If you have ordered a small pizza, which is barely enough for your hunger, these items compose a pizza, which is your life. So each of these items needs to have some amount of weightage. You have to have a personal life. You have to have a family of some sort, whether you're someone who believes in conventional families or otherwise. Family is important at the end of the day. Your health is a very critical slice of that pizza. You cannot afford to ignore it because, like they say, you can have hundreds of problems until you have a health problem. And then you have only one problem. Your finances are always going to be critical because whoever said money can't buy happiness really doesn't know where to look. Social life and your social goals or your personal goals or your long-term goals, all of them constitute different slices of that pizza of life. So after you've made that list, please categorize them into whatever categories work for you. If you want to put personal, family, social into one, that's fine. It is who you are. You don't have to work as per my categorization. You don't have to work as per your colleagues' categorization. What works for you may not necessarily work for me, and vice versa. Assign weights to these goals. Now you've created your buckets, right? You have a long list where you've sorted them out, saying that, okay, I have one bucket which is called family. I have one bucket called financial goals. I have one bucket which is related to health. I have one bucket which is related to my profession. I have one which is, let's say, social and friends. And I may have one or two more buckets. But within those buckets also, all the goals cannot have the same weightage. For example, in your health related goals, sleeping for 7 hours a day or sleeping for 8 hours a day is far more important than running a marathon, right? It is the most basic thing. You need to ensure that your health doesn't suffer. As a woman, you have a lot of hormones. Those hormones need balance. So your nutrition and your sleep are very important. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then obviously you're going to compromise on your health. But compromising on that sleep because you think you really need to run a marathon in this lifetime, that is not the kind of priority you need to have. So look at the goals in each bucket and assign weights. 1 being the most critical and 5 being those that can be deleted or ignored. You may have items which are important. Now, for example, paying the electricity bill or paying school fees or paying your, your telephone bill. These are important and they are urgent. But at the same time, something like, ensuring that you have 1 lakh rupees in your bank account. Okay, that is important, but it may not be urgent. Similarly, the goal of having to buy your medicines, your supplements, that is important and it is always urgent. Buying a new dress may not be urgent. It is something you can choose to defer. The third one, important but not urgent, would be those things that you aspire to do, but that are not necessarily critical in your life or that are not important. So critical would be those things that you cannot do without. Enough sleep, making sure you meet your work deadlines, important work deadlines, making sure that you're eating healthy food, making sure that your finances are taken care of, your bills are paid on time. These are all critical. Things that are important and urgent are those things that are not critical, that are not life altering. For example, making sure that you walk every single day is important, but it is not critical. Sleeping every day is critical, correct? Can you afford to not sleep every day? No, you cannot afford to not sleep every day. And can you afford to go on 4 or 5 hours of sleep every single day? No, you cannot. So getting enough sleep is critical. Walking 10,000 steps a day is important. If you are overweight, you want to lose weight. If your BP or your sugar is shooting up, you need to control it. It is important. Is it urgent? Yes, it is urgent. But is it critical? Not necessarily. Important but not urgent. You need to lose 5 kgs. You are borderline saying that, okay, my parameters are under control, right? My BP, my sugar, my cholesterol, it's all under control. But I want to lose weight. It is important. Is it urgent? Not necessarily. Maybe if you're getting married in a few months' time or you have a very important family function, it could be urgent also. But in most cases, losing that extra 5 kilos will be important, yes, from a health perspective, but it may not be urgent. Next one, not so important. So you are slightly overweight, bordering between healthy weight and, being slightly overweight. Your BMI is borderline. So that thing is in your mind more than it is in the doctor's file. The doctor says you're fine, but you are saying, no, I want to lose more weight. So that becomes not so important, right? Cleaning. Your house is swept. It is swabbed. Somebody comes in to do the dusting. The utensils are washed, right? But you want to clean up your cupboard. Cleaning your cupboard is not so important. If it's not so important, you can afford to put it off to a weekend or to an extra holiday. So that falls into the category of not so important. I want to clean my cupboard, but do I really need to clean my cupboard? That is a question you need to ask yourself and therefore assign a weight to it. And those that can be deleted or ignored. For example, I want to join a new book club, right? Now, you are someone who reads regularly. Whether or not you join a book club, you will continue to read. So is it something that you can choose to ignore for now? Maybe yes. But if you are someone who wants to read but is not reading regularly, then it can be assigned a weight of 4, saying that it is important but not so important, right? So these are questions you need to ask yourself, assign weights based on your priorities and where you stand in life. And like I said, not one size fits all. What works for you may not work for me. So what do you do now that you've prepared a list? You've created buckets and sorted items into those buckets, and then you have sorted each item in the bucket by weight, right? You've assigned weights and you sort it out, saying that this is critical, this is important and urgent, this is important but not urgent, this is not so important, and this is not important at all, and therefore I'm going to ignore it. What do you do after you have done that? Now, this to me is one of the most important things to do. Once you've made that list, once you've assigned those weights, once you've done the sorting, right, you will have a good idea of what your priorities really are. Because when you speak to a life coach or when you see those random videos on YouTube or on Instagram, you keep asking yourself, what is my priority in life? And that is a question that I find very random for most of us. As a chartered accountant, you and I have been taught to think logically. We think somebody teaches us a process for life. You will be taught a process for even applying for a job. But nobody tells you what is the process for creating your priorities. And to me, this presentation is very critical to creating that process of making your priorities clear. I prepared a list. I created buckets saying that these are the important chapters of my life. Then the items that were there in my list, I took the time out to sort them into each bucket, into each category. Now that I have done that, I have also assigned weights, saying that this is very important, this is super critical, this is not important. Now, once you've done all of that, right, items that you cannot afford to ignore. Below 3, that is category 4 and 5, is what I call discretionary goals or discretionary to-dos. These discretionary to-dos and goals, these are the ones that you need to, at some point, say, okay, I am not going to focus my energies on now. I have too much on my plate. Let this be on the list, but I'm not going to give any kind of time or personal, financial, or any other kind of resources to these 2 categories. So under each bucket, whatever falls into 4 and 5, if you are overburdened, if you are finding it difficult to distribute your energy and your knowledge to all the items that you want to do, then these are the items that you can choose to not dedicate any kind of time and effort to. And it is very important you start with that list, because to reach this stage of filtering down your priorities, you have to start with that list. अपने पास एक लिस्ट होती है तो हमें पता होता है कि ये हमें करना है, ये हमें नहीं करना है, मेरे को ये कब करना है, कैसे करना है, that comes later. But the process of having a list itself is telling yourself that I have emptied the burden here and put it down into a document that I can refer to even in the middle of the night. It is a very personal, very critical. Just like you have a checklist for all the things that we do in life, right from visas to our document submissions at the at the MCA to any kind of other application. This to-do list, this checklist is a very critical part of the recipe of a content and happy life, and therefore a successful life. So after you have created your list, you've done your sorting and you've put your weights, you can reasonably, I would say, choose to ignore whatever comes into buckets 4 and 5. Now, this is again a set of questions that you need to be able to ask yourself. And what you can do is you can create separate columns in your worksheet, okay, to actually tick off these items. So after the to-do list, then the weights, you can add another column saying can be delegated, can be outsourced. Can you pay someone to do it? Can you automate it? Can you rework it? Can you change the way things are being done? And most importantly, can I plan ahead? So these 5 items can actually be 5 columns in your worksheet to help you understand how to get your work done. Why do you want to delegate work to someone? There will be certain things in life that nobody other than you can do. Correct? Can anybody else be the person you want to be? Can anybody else evolve for you? Can anybody else learn for you? No, they cannot. If you sit down and read that book, you are the one consuming that knowledge. You cannot delegate the work of reading that book for you to somebody else. If you walk every day, those are steps that you have counted out from your to-do list. Nobody else can walk for you. Therefore, it is extremely critical to identify which tasks can be delegated. So once you have actually prepared your basic list, assigned weights, and sorted that these are things that I must necessarily do, identify the tasks that can be delegated to someone. For example, I know a fellow CA who picks her son up from school every day and she drops him to school every day. Now, she did it for almost 7 months of the last academic year. One day, we were both standing outside school before some event, and I asked her a very simple question. Why are you doing this? She is like, but then how will he come home? I was like, why? There's no van in your area. She said, no van, so I've never tried, and the school bus doesn't come to my area. I said, no problem. Even if the school bus doesn't come to your area, there must be a van service of some sort. She was like, somebody told me, but I didn't take it seriously because I've never done it before. I was like, in your time. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So yeah, like I was saying, this colleague, so she finally figured out the mechanism for getting in place a van for her area. She put together a few mothers. They spoke to a van driver, got an attendant so that they did not have trust issues and worry. And her son actually started going to school and coming back using the van service. Now, it is not that she does not want to do it. She wants to do it. But does time permit her to do it? No, it doesn't. Therefore, she has delegated this to somebody else. Other simple tasks could be like getting a cook, getting someone to clean your house for you, paying someone to do those tasks instead of you. Now, I'll tell you a very critical such instance. And this is something that I have seen in 2 very close family cases, is that I had a relative who, where the senior person had a very bad case of diabetes. And she needed to be given her insulin injections 4 times a day. Now, as an only daughter, obviously, it used to fall upon her child to do this every single day because her mother was not able to take the injections herself. The problem arose when she had to start traveling for work. She had nobody on whom she could rely. So even friends and neighbors, they wouldn't always be at home to come over and give her mother the injection. After a lot of thought, after a lot of research, somebody suggested to her that there was a hospital in the vicinity that had a home care service. She went there, spoke to them, and actually got someone from their team to come to her house 3 times a day, not 4 times, 3 times a day to give that injection. Because at night, her father would be there to administer the insulin. Now, it was not something that she was happy to do, but the situation demanded. Similarly, getting a maid to help out, getting a cook to help out, getting, paid help for very basic day-to-day tasks that can and should be delegated to somebody else is a form of self-preservation. It is smart work. You don't have to be a martyr 24 hours in a day. You don't have to do it all by hand. A lot of women, because they're working, are forced to outsource cooking, cleaning, sometimes even teaching their children. It is not that those mothers are not well qualified. It is not that those mothers don't want to teach their children. It is a choice they are making to have a professional who is doing this for a living to teach their children in the form of a tuition teacher because they cannot commit the time due to their circumstances. Career choice. You can choose to get a Roomba. You can choose to automate your bill payments. For example, EMIs these days are mostly automated. Similarly, you can automate your utility payments. You can create an auto debit for your investments. There are n number of things that you can automate today, and there is absolutely no reason, no rhyme, no logic to why we should not do it. Working hard is important. Working smart is even more important. If you have to achieve that long list of goals that you may have in your life, if you have to make sure that you tick off all the items on you need to do, but that you cannot do, or that ideally you should not even be doing, then you will not be able to survive. How can you rework to ensure better results? Now, sometimes there are things that you have to do that you can neither delegate nor outsource nor automate. What do you do in such a situation? You see if you can rework the equation. For example, can you opt for a school that has timings that allow you to go to work? Can you move to a locality that is closer to your office? Can you try to find a role that better suits your situation? This is called reworking. Can you club habits with necessities? Can you rework your own habits to ensure that you get better results in your life because you have clubbed them with those necessities? If you read this beautiful book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about the idea of piggybacking not so important habits with important habits. For example, you have no choice but to go to work, correct? Now, many of us will take a rickshaw from the metro station to our home, right? If, for example, a metro station is close to your house, okay, after you have changed trains and gotten down from the metro, you will probably take a rickshaw from the metro to get home. Can you club getting down from the metro with a walk to your house instead of paying for that rickshaw so that you get an X number of steps in a day? When you're packing your tiffin, okay, can you add a salad with your regular food to ensure that you ended up eating a little bit of healthy food also? Can you put a timer on your phone, okay, for a timeout from all social media apps after 10:30 in the night to ensure that you don't waste your mindful sleeping time on social media apps? Club habits. Once you've done that and your social media apps are on auto lock, what have you to do? Either you will sleep or you can choose to read a few pages. Can you keep a glass of water by your bedside at night so that as soon as you wake up in the morning, the first thing you will consume will be a glass of water and not a cup of tea? So how can you rework your habits? How can you rework your life? How can you rework the structure of your life to ensure better results? And very important, can I plan ahead? So for example, I know I have X expenses coming up next year. Okay, let's say it is my parents' 50th anniversary or it is my parents' 25th anniversary. I wish to give them a very nice present. So can I plan ahead? Can I save, on a monthly basis rather than having to wonder how to afford a good present for them at the end of that 1 year? Can I find literature to help me plan my life better? Can I find options to make the quality of my life better? If I know I have something coming up in 3 years' time, or there is an X kind of goal that I want to achieve in 3 years' time, can I start working towards it now? You may be a professional today. You may be someone who's just qualified from your chartered accountancy, right? You may be newly married. You know you want to have a child. Let's say in 3 years, in 5 years, in 7 years, whenever you're married, when you're settled. Can I find a piece of literature that I can read up? Because nobody gives you a manual for life. So if you can find that kind of literature that will help you understand how to do things better, to plan ahead, it can significantly improve the quality of your life. For example, let's say you are from UP. You're currently living in Bombay. Now, luckily in India, flights are not that expensive. Traveling up and down is not that hard. But can you choose to find a job closer to home rather than living in Bombay? So that tomorrow when you have a family, it is easier to manage. Can you choose to find a job that has an option of hybrid, going to work a few times a week, working from home a few times a week, so that in the future you don't have to sacrifice your career? Can you upskill yourself now so that you can move into a position where the quality of your work matters more than the quantity of work? Can I create an alternative source of income today that will augment my current income and supplement any other requirements I may have in the future? These are all things that you need to think about now, based on those lists that you create for yourself, based on the priorities that you have figured out for yourself in life, and see if you can plan ahead. So along with the delegate, outsource, automate, I like to call it my ADO. Okay? ADOW. And finally, P. Automate, delegate, outsource, rework, plan ahead. So of these three, for me, the most important are always my A, D, and O. I always look at P and reworking as two extra ones, but A, D, O are always going to be easily available to most of us. We may not be able to find ways to plan for certain things, but what we will always be able to find are ways to do the A, D, and O in our life. Automate, delegate, outsource. And if you think about it, most of our energy, our physical energy, and sometimes even our mental energy goes into work that actually can be removed from our list very easily. So if you follow the process of ADO consistently, you are very likely to free up critical time and focus on your priorities. Now, this was a planning portion of it. But to strike the correct kind of work-life balance, there are some very critical changes to our thinking that we need to make. And the first question is, do I really want it all, or do I really need it all? We may want it all, but we don't always need it all. At the end of the day, you and I, we can only consume 4 meals in a day, right? If you're a bodybuilder, you might consume 6 smaller meals in a day, but the total quantity of food that you're going to eat is going to be the same. You can live in one house at a time. Physically, you can drive one car at a time. You don't need more than 20 pairs of clothes in your wardrobe, right? Having a small close circle of friends is far more important than having a large number of acquaintances. So do you want it all, or do you really need it all? That is the first change in our thinking that we need to make if we want to strike a work-life balance. Sometimes having a good, well-paying job is far more important than being the best performer year on year, which comes at a certain cost. So the question will always be, do you want or do you need? The second very important question is this making me happy? If it is not making you happy, then do you really need it? If you need it, you keep it in your life. If you don't need it, you get rid of it. Because that is a choice nobody else is going to make for you. If you are not happy in this workplace, can you afford to switch your job? If you can, you do it. But if you need that job, if you don't have too many other options, well, then you have to stick with it, right? But the importance of all of it helps you arrive at these two answers. Do I want it or do I need it? And is it making me happy? How important is it? If you are the sole breadwinner in your family, or if between you and your other earning members in your family, you all are barely able to make ends meet or meet those financial goals that you have, then it is important. You can't afford to change jobs. You cannot afford to take a pay cut. You cannot afford to change the structure of your work life. So these are questions you need to ask and you need to answer. And on the basis of all of this, you need to ask yourself, can I say no? You are getting paid for X number of hours in your office. You have been promised a certain job description. What you take up over and beyond that sometimes is in your control. Sometimes it's not in your control. But even if it is not in your control, can you say no? Should you say no? That is a question you need to ask yourself. And identifying those opportunities when you can say no is very critical to maintaining a work-life balance. After work meetings are possible for a lot of single people. They are possible for a lot of men. They may not be possible for a lot of women or for people who have family commitments. And therefore, you have to take the choice of saying no to those. Sometimes you know that another colleague can take up a piece of work because their workload is lighter. So do you take up the extra pressure that is being applied to you because you seem like the kind of person who will not say no? At that point, that is a choice you have to make. You have to be able to put your foot down and say that, no, I will not be able to do this. I think there is someone who is better suited in this situation. You need to be able to ask yourself, how much can I take? Can I take more pressure than this? Should I cut back on the amount of pressure I'm being put on? Can I cut back on the number of responsibilities that are being dumped on me? How much more can I take? Am I at breaking point? Have I brought this breaking point upon myself by some of the choices I have made? These are all important questions to ask yourself and to start actually using the ADO. Automate, delegate, outsource. Whatever you can, you have to do it, whether it is in your professional life or your personal life. For example, you know that your mother can order the vegetables on a phone app, but if she insists that you go down and buy those vegetables and come when you're tired, when you're too annoyed to do anything, you have to be able to run and say, no, I don't want to do this. Please order it on the phone app. And if she can't do it and you want to do it on the phone app and get done with it, fine. That's a choice you make. The choices, whether at your workplace or in your home, are always going to be yours. There will be times when you cannot make the choice, and there have to be times when you have to put your foot down and say no. And these two letters, NO, are the most critical in ensuring that work-life balance. Because you only have 24 hours in a day. And after analyzing all of this, you have to be able to make your own Lakshman Rekha, saying that this is where I draw the line. I am making a boundary which I do not wish anybody to violate. If somebody tries to violate this boundary, I will push them back. So we are all entitled to drawing our own boundaries based on our individual circumstances, on our personal nature, on who we are, and most importantly, who we wish to be in life. So make those choices, draw those boundaries, use the word no when you have to, use ADO whenever you can, and stick to the critical items in your list. This is how you arrive at some semblance of a work-life balance. Because there is no such thing as a perfect work-life balance. But what is possible is to be content with the way you're managing it all. There is always scope for improvement. But it has to start somewhere. And it always starts with a 2-letter word, no. At the end of the day, I think the most important question of all for each and every one of us is what makes me happy. If the way things are in your life right now, if the distribution of your most important resource, your time, is not as per your wishes and desires, then clearly it's not making you happy and you need to be able to do something about it. Thank you so much, everyone. I would like to thank the WMEC for this opportunity. I hope some of my suggestions and my process will be of help to all of you in some way or the other. And please do remember the ADO and the most important two-letter word in all our lives, no.
Thank you, ma'am, for telling us this wonderful thing, like how to balance work life and everything, because this is what we needed right now in our CA fraternity. I think major of the people will agree who are attending the sessions since September month is coming. So you have given us a wonderful knowledge how to set boundaries, how to set priorities, how to say no, what is the importance. I think this is what we needed. I think was a must needed session by CA Institute. Thank you. But I'd like to ask audience any questions they have for you, ma'am. Yeah, so I would like to say a vote of thanks to you, ma'am. Thank you for giving us a wonderful knowledge and telling us how to do things and how to do balance about everything. And also my gratitude for taking our time for attending and making the session more successful. Thank you.